Hey, all you rad dads out there.
Jerry, I really want to thank you for your time joining me on the Rad Dad Show in the Golden Nugget, the historic Golden Nugget.
Yeah.
In Las Vegas, Nevada, for Punk Rock Bowling 2024.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start the way we always do, and that's by asking you the hardest question that we have. So
Okay.
get ready. Who are you?
Yeah. Well, now I'm a dad. Yeah, who am I? Yeah, well, I'm just a person who stuck with what occurred to me from when my mind first reached a point where I could conceptualize and where I could reflect and where I knew right from wrong. And it was incapable of forgetting things that I observed. So I had a creative mind, and I had a mind oriented towards, I guess, resisting illegitimate authority.
Yep.
And that started early on. I mean, I got, very good grades. I was very socialized, but people that were mean or evil rubbed me the wrong way.
Right.
And then I think I dedicated my life to fighting stupidity, which is a thankless task. And
not always just thankless, but sometimes fruitless.
well,
too, right?
de-evolution is real.
Right.
And so there's more brain-dead people than ever. And there's no excuse for it, but it's true.
Yeah.
And it's just very disheartening and depressing,
Yeah.
And I've watched it happen over the last 50 years. I'm an old man, so I've seen the decimation of public education. I've seen people lose the ability to think critically, to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff, the disinformation from real information, propaganda from truth, and they just repeat and spout slogans en masse, like a colony of drones, and it's now reached fever pitch.
Yeah.
And you can see it happening, and you can see the corruption beginning to end, top to bottom. The United States is now going to become, at best, a plutocracy, or more like what's called a kakistocracy, which is Trump's nihilistic intent is to elevate people who are unqualified and who hate their jobs, hate their positions, and put them in those positions on purpose to dismantle everything.
Yeah.
And who does that serve? The billionaires.
Yeah.
I mean, the more chaos there is, the more World Wrestling Federation mentality, where here's a guy with a white hat, here's a guy in a black hat, and you get the whole crowd riled up and worked up to pick one or the other and take sides and have them. That's the more they do that, the more it benefits the super wealthy, because their agenda is simply no regulation, don't pay taxes. They don't really care if First Amendment rights are trampled on, or human rights are decimated, or women's rights are shit on. They really don't care. And they applaud Trump for being able to corrupt the Supreme Court, which was amazing. Took the highest court in the land and turned it into his fiefdom.
And so, okay, but hang on. You've just brought a child into this world.
Into that world.
So what? So, well, and okay, so we got into all that. Jerry Casale from Devo, obviously, right? Musician, artist, director.
Right.
And through all of that, really aiming to combat de-evolution, which, like we talked about, is maybe to some degree it's futile. We have to do it, right?
Yeah.
Actually, Billy Bragg talked about it last night on stage. But we have to do it. We have to fight the fight.
It's true. And what's interesting is that there's a palpable sense of evil in the air like never before. But it's interesting how few people it takes to beat back against that.
Yeah.
Like how few people doing the right thing can ward off, like tons of evil.
Yeah.
It is true. And though I have no plausible, argument to make to why I would bring a child into this world, I did it simply because my wife, who's much younger than me, reached the point where she wanted a child. And I would have been really selfish to not do that. And I remember a point in my life when everything was gelling and everything was coming together. And for the first time in my life, in 1980, I felt like, okay, child is a good idea. For the first time in my life.
Yeah.
Just growing up the way I did in a large blue-collar family and seeing all the strife and all the struggle and all the hardship, I didn't have a good model for parenting.
Okay.
Right? So for the first time in my life I did, and I was with this woman, and by 1985 we had been together 7 years. She was, quote, the love of my life, and I thought, this is it, we're going to do this. And we talked about it. We made a wedding date. We got engaged, and it all went south during the engagement.
Okay.
Like, I didn't see it coming. Completely sucker punched.
Yeah.
Felt completely foolish. And it was devastating. It's traumatic. Took me a few years to even recover and start having some other normal relationship. But then I never found another woman that was either I wanted to have a child with or she wanted to have a child. It wasn't working out.
Right.
So it just looked like I was never going to do it my whole life. So I'd given up on it. And then my wife Krista comes along just when you least expect it. There it was. And I realized how open to criticism I would be, because let's be honest, I won't be around when she's this angry teenager that has to rebel against the parents. And they do rebel no matter how decent and logical and reasonable the parents are.
Yeah.
But I won't be around for that, and that makes me feel really bad at different times of the day and in the middle of the night. That's the truth. And
do you think there's a right time to have children, though? Like,
no.
This is something that's come up on the show a lot. We've had young dads, old dads, everything in between. But it's funny. Like, the constant, I think, is the love that comes out of it and the love that child deserves too, right? So,
well, that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
My God, I love her beyond what I thought is possible. You hear all these stories from parents, and you think you get it, but you don't get it until you do it.
Right.
And then something kicks in that's our animal instinct. And I remember being there in the delivery room and my iPhone going away, and she's coming out.
Yeah.
They cut the cord, and I go do the scissors thing, and I hold her, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's over. You're bonded. Now you'll do anything.
Yeah.
This is way beyond a puppy.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Do you think? Like, these are amazing moments in your life, right? Like, you'll never forget that moment.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed. It's like, oh my God, this is a human.
Yeah.
We just made a human. It's now.
Yeah, no matter what you believe, like, it's funny. That term, like, miracle, really kind of resonates there. It's kind of, I'm certainly not a religious person.
No,
and
I know what you mean.
But it's a miracle of science and biology and it's beyond that, really.
Yeah,
right?
It's frightening. It's like a beautiful horror movie. The replication.
Yes, yeah.
That what we do as organisms.
Yeah.
We watch every other organism do it.
Yeah.
And there we are doing it. And now, unlike any other species, this one's not going away, barring some tragedy, right? And she has just changed, as you know. You watch your children every month. It's a new human. There's somebody else in there.
Yeah.
And you're watching them form, motor skills, brain activity, forming words, forming a personality. She's 18 months now, and she's a person.
Not just a little person, right?
A person.
She's walking around. I saw her. She had her own energy dome.
Yeah.
And
she loves music, and we didn't push that on her at all.
Yeah.
She just responded every time she heard music, and she completely focused on Bob Marley. That was it.
Oh, cool.
She could be fussy and crying because of teething. My wife puts on Lively Up Yourself or Jammin', and she literally, we have iPhone video of it to prove to people we're not just wacky parents. Within 15 seconds, the whining and the sniffling stops, and she's all calm, and she's kind of moving her foot.
Yeah.
And now she expects to see Bob Marley. There's 3 very good full-length concerts on Netflix that you can call up from the 70s.
Yep.
She expects to see it. So when we just play the music, she looks at the flat screen TV to wanting to find it. And I do think it's because of that hypnotic, mid-tempo, pendulum swing of reggae.
Yeah.
Nothing's sticking out at you. It isn't Devo. It's not punk. It's not in-your-face sounds. Everything's played flawlessly, sung flawlessly, and it is, that music is just, it's kind of like Rasta gospel, right?
Yeah.
It's meant to hypnotize you.
Yeah, yeah. And so you're kind of describing this new change in your life. Do you think having a child has changed you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
How?
Definitely. She demands attention, and I love giving her that attention because it's really rewarding and amazing, right? All the time.
Yeah.
She's so sweet, and it's such a positive, innocent thing there in front of you that it takes your mind off of all this horrible stuff that we're fed daily. It's like I try not to even watch any of the cable news anymore because it's like Videodrome.
Yeah.
It seems to me to be like a poison. It's all canned. The level of discourse is all controlled. The same 10 talking heads show up all the time. Yeah. It's kabuki. It's crap, and it's designed to just make you give up and poison. And I'm feeling nicer because of Inara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pure, right?
Yeah.
It's pure, especially at that age.
Well, you have daughters in the Goldilocks zone right now, both of you, where that's all the good stuff. They're talking, they're thinking, they're interacting, but they're still very innocent.
Yeah.
And they're not saying you asshole, right? And they're
not too often, yeah.
Yeah, they're sweet.
Yeah.
And you can just see them delighting in using the power of the fully developed brain.
Yeah.
They're probably creating things, right? Just on their own, creating
absolutely
drawings and
that's one of the most
stories.
Fun things I find.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see it with your daughter, even at 18 months, right? Those little things that they do and figure out and put together, and even when they get paints and music, right? Like a little piano or something, and they discover that joy of, I did this thing to make that sound.
She's doing
right?
that now. Yeah, she's doing that now. And of course, we have the little 3-dimensional cognitive puzzles and sculptures you put together, and you put the ball on the top and it rolls down and you get it. And she just loves figuring that out.
Yeah. It's amazing. So I think all the guys in Devo are dads, is that right?
Well, I guess.
Am I correct on that?
Yes, now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Mark has adopted children.
Yeah.
My deceased brother Bob had 2 children that are now not children at all. They're in their 30s.
Yeah.
Bob Mothersbaugh has children spanning from 20 down to, I think, 10. 3 children. And Jeff Friedel.
Yeah.
He just had a child who's 7 months old.
Yeah. Wow. And so you guys are sort of going through a lot of the same things at the same time. So do you kind of feel like you're getting that support from the rest of the band members, or you taking advice from them?
Definitely from Jeff.
Yeah.
The others are more like, we did that.
Yeah. Yeah, you think that's a big deal right now? Like, wait till they are teenagers or whatever, that kind of stuff.
The good thing with Jeff is every device, like, the electric swing, the little play mat, this and that she outgrew.
Yeah.
Give to Jeff.
Yeah, perfect. Not only is that like a generosity of sharing those things, but hey, get it the hell out of my house too, right? Because you accumulate all these things.
There's that, but they outgrew everything so fast.
Yeah, it's amazing. You talked a little bit about your upbringing, like as you became a father. Did that kind of create a reflective moment for you to kind of think back on your upbringing? You kind of talked a little bit about that, but
my parents were from the generation where babies had babies. In other words, my mom was barely 19 and my dad was 22 when I was born, right?
Yep.
That's not ever a great idea. I mean, I can see that now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been ready for this then at all, because you don't really know who you are yet, and you haven't become successful and lived your life yet, and so the kid is a drain.
Yeah.
You would feel like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And of course, my parents were blue-collar and Catholic, so they weren't allowed to use birth control.
Yeah.
So, they were from a family where everybody was breeding like rabbits. My mom came from a family of 11 children.
Wow.
And then each of them were having 5 and 6 children.
Yeah.
And I was like the designated babysitter because I was on the oldest end of it. And I would just watch these kids run them ragged because my dad worked all day.
Yeah.
And my mom, without the benefit of the technology we have today, was washing diapers, right?
Yeah.
And drying the diapers and putting them back on. There were no disposable diapers.
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine it when it takes so much energy for one child. Like for the first 4 months, we were not sleeping. We had 3-hour shifts, right? 3 hours of sleep was all you could get. And you're going, okay, great.
Yeah.
and then you think of these people who are so young themselves, and my father getting up at 7 and going to work in a mold making plant. It's insanity because they turned right around and did it again, and then they did it again.
Yeah.
It's exhausting thinking about it.
Well, and especially as a young person, right? And are you capable to, like we're talking about, people are having kids in their late teens and early 20s, like to cope with that amount of. We know that stress comes along with being a parent, and it's not always bad stress, but it's stress, right?
No.
And it's worth it to deal with it. But as a young person yourself, I mean, how do you learn the skills to cope with all that, right? And
exactly. It's easy for me now because I just watch her in wonderment, and I have nothing left to prove really in my life, and you don't put yourself first. You can't put yourself first once this kid is there, right? But that doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But if I was 22, I'm sure that would get to me.
Yeah. We talked to lots of people on this show, and that's a big thing that they share is, I was worried that having kids would kind of take me away from me, right? And I think as you get older and you gain more wisdom and more understanding of the world and become more comfortable with yourself, that's not as big of a thing. But certainly as a young person, that's a big shock.
Yeah.
It's kind of an amazing thing.
Well, wait, how old were you when you had your first kid?
31.
Okay.
31.
And you? Same.
Yeah. And it was a shock for me.
Yeah, I think would say that's about as young as you want to do it.
Yeah. Like I don't think I would have been ready before that. And we were fortunate to have been able to sort of choose the time when we would have children. Not everybody, has that.
Yeah, I guess that's about when I started thinking about it too. It was right after we put out the Freedom of Choice record.
Yeah. Yeah, you had that freedom of choice, right? Yeah.
Suddenly, what always seemed like a verboten, like, no way I'm having a kid, turned into like, God, I think I'd like to have a kid.
Well, and there was a lot changing probably for you around that time too.
Oh, everything.
Yeah, everything changed, right? With Whip It coming out especially, right?
Yeah. But it was nice to go to good restaurants.
Absolutely. I was curious, you guys are still really busy these days. I mean, Devo's active. You've got
well, we could have been much more active, but I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. And but you're touring, you're playing shows pretty regularly.
Well, last year we did. We played a whole cluster of shows in Europe, all through Scandinavia,
Yep.
Germany, and Sweden, and into England and Scotland. And then we came back to the United States and played the whole West Coast from Washington and Oregon, California. That was like 11 or 12 shows. And then 2 weeks later we flew to Australia.
Yeah.
And we played 8 shows there. So that was fun.
Incredible.
That was great.
Devo's huge. I mean, I look at the anticipation here too of folks waiting for you to play punk rock bowling, and I'm in that group. What I'm curious about is, does it change now having to leave for those shows with having a little one at home?
Yes.
Like what's that?
Yeah, you
like
you don't stop thinking about your kid.
Yeah.
And you miss your kid.
Yeah.
And I'm calling into my wife, how's everything, all the time.
Yeah.
Something just would have never occurred to me before.
Yeah. And I mean, we're lucky. We're in a generation where we've got, we can video call our kids.
Yeah.
You could get a million pictures. You can have those all
any moment.
It's not the one photo in your wallet, right, of your kids from 5 years ago. You can have a picture of 2 seconds.
It's at any moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I want to give you a bit of a chance to talk a little bit about what's happening with Devo. So we're here for Punk Rock Bowling.
Right.
How are you feeling about Punk Rock Bowling? You're playing in a few hours here.
Punk Rock Bowling loves Devo.
Yep, you've been here a few times. We saw you here in 2013.
Right,
that was 2013. The last time we saw you,
and I think Josh Fries was drumming then, wasn't he, or no?
Mark says no. He's the expert.
That was Josh Friedel.
Jeff, yeah.
Josh Fries drummed another time here with us. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And is Jeff playing tonight, or
yes,
is it?
Jeff's playing tonight. I mean, once Josh joined the Foo Fighters, that was it.
Yeah.
He's a Foo Fighter.
Yeah.
I mean, and those people are like war machine. They're just right.
Yep.
World domination. They don't quit playing.
Yeah. Yeah, they're busy, but Devo's busy too. So you're playing tonight. So this would be the
third time.
Third time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exciting. And do you guys enjoy, like, what do you like about coming back to punk rock bowling?
Well, it's just it's a really enthusiastic, great crowd.
Yeah.
It's a very focused type of crowd.
Yeah.
And we like the fact that they like us, because we're not really punks. I mean, we were punks maybe in the biggest sense of the word, where when I think of punk, I think of people who were DIY,
Yep.
right, and who resisted formulas.
Yeah, anti-establishment.
Right, exactly, and rebelled against stupidity and conformity.
Yep.
So Devo did do that, but we were more like punk scientists.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really adhere to, here's the 3 or 4 chords you can use, here's the way you dress,
Yep.
here's what you talk about. And we certainly weren't nihilists. We had a lot to talk about.
Yep. But I think that speaks to that ethos, right? Like, I think people, like, regardless of kind of the music, if you have that ethos, people relate to it.
Yeah.
They identify with it, right?
Yeah, I do think that they see that it's real, and that's what it has in common with the best punk,
Yeah.
which was, that stuff was done with a sense of urgency and honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. You also have a documentary that's...
Yeah.
I don't know if it's come out yet, but it's premiered.
Well, they're
right?
kind
It's
of
been
putting
seen.
it around at some
Yeah.
festivals, and I know it hasn't been slated and scheduled and sold in a way like, okay, it's on Netflix then.
Yeah.
But that will happen.
That's coming. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, tell me a little bit about what is that footage that's being shared? What's the story that's kind of being told? And
Well, I mean, Chris Smith, the director for Vice, had access to so much stuff that isn't even stuff that we gave him. It's just out there. It's
Yeah.
out there in the world. I mean, you could start searching on the web, and you'll find so much Devo stuff that you could make 20 documentaries, right? And so it's like the Cliff's Notes.
Okay.
Because here's one man's idea of distilling down what he saw into something the way he sees it.
Yeah.
I mean, me as a director, I take that same material, all those same assets, and do a completely different story and a completely different document that would have focused on other things altogether. But you know, it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Well, I know we're really excited to see it at some point here. And you put out a solo EP. This would be end of 2022, but
yeah, I do that as much as I can. I'm about to do another one, and this one will actually be full length. It'll be an EP.
Yeah.
And it's I'll let you look this up. I won't digress and go into it, but it's a Native American term from a Southwest Native American tribe whose name I can't remember right now, but it's a phenomena that they labeled after their observations of white men coming and settling and taking their land. The word is Wetiko. Wetiko. And I wrote a suite of songs. I was so inspired by Wetiko. All I can say is that it's the American Indian version of de-evolution.
Okay.
And so I was inspired to write a whole suite of songs based on that concept.
Wow. Well, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Certainly a conversation that lots of people are having too around the world. So we're from Canada, where sort of that concept of colonialism and recognition of what Indigenous people have gone through over the years is a big conversation. Still something that many people are not ready to wrap their heads around and acknowledge and admit. But it is very moving when you really start to dig into what that experience was.
Well, it's almost like greed on a level of a virus, like a disease.
Yeah. Well, and I think
it's never enough.
One of the things that I think is really interesting about that too is people think about that as something that just happened in the past, but those people and those descendants of those people are still
at it.
Well, and the recipients of it too, right? The Indigenous folks, their descendants are here, and they have that sort of generational trauma that they carry with them too.
Yeah,
right?
They're born into it.
Yeah, and so that's not something I think people are really ready to. People aren't as ready to talk about and think about it. So that sounds like a really interesting project. Anything else going on for Jerry or for Devo that you want to tell our listeners?
Well, hopefully Mark will take his foot off the brake in 2025.
Okay.
And we'll be doing a lot of things.
Okay.
That's my hope, because there's, Devo, there's not a dearth of or a lack of ideas, right? The ideas are all there. It's about opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, I have so many things that I wanted to do that didn't get done, right? I'm so frustrated by it. But a lot of them still could be done.
Yeah.
Like a graphic novel based on Devo, and a film.
Okay.
Film.
Like a feature film.
Yeah, feature film.
Okay.
You're not a biopic.
No.
Not a biopic at all.
Like a inspired by Devo. Sort
yeah,
of
in other words, like
kind of.
Yeah, proof of concept.
Yeah.
This would be a movie about
de-evolution.
Yeah, but it would be a drama.
Yeah.
Dramedy.
Okay.
Dark comedy.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's all really exciting.
All right.
We're excited to see you tonight at Punk Rock Bowling.
Yeah.
One last thing. Any advice for dads out there listening? Maybe new dads. You've got that fresh experience in your mind. Any advice for new dads?
Brush your teeth and use mouthwash before you get your daughter or son up in the morning.
That's good advice. I like that one. Awesome. Thanks, Jerry. Really appreciate your time.
Okay.